Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Willem, Owen, and Paul. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We have a bit of a quiet day, but we'll get some questions in by you guys at the end of the stream, hopefully to fill out the hour. But with regards to news for today, we have a couple of bits in relation to Inacio and Kvaratskhelia. We have got that right the first time. Very proud of that. We also have some guys that are on international duty. It was reported earlier that Virgil van Dijk might be rested tonight. However, the Netherlands, being the dickheads that they are, decided to play him against Gibraltar of all teams. Realistically, he is not needed in that squad, but yet he plays. Cody Gakpo, however, isn't playing, so that's at least one positive. Argentina are facing off against Brazil later this evening, and both Alexi McAllister and Alisson Becker are playing in that game. One would expect, because Ederson is injured. But yeah, other than that, that's really all the news that we have at the moment, so we'll get into it. With regards to the likes of Liverpool looking to meet Inacio's release clause, which is very good news for me. I don't care what source it came from. There is no smoke without fire. I would be a very happy man if that happens the first week of January. That would be the best Christmas present I ever get. Owen, I'll throw the question to you first of all. With reports and the likes of scouts being sent over to watch him and Florentino Luis and a couple of other players that play for Benfica and Sporting too, that happened just before the international break. As I said, there's no smoke without fire. Do you think Inacio is signed in January or even next summer?
I reckon if it's coming out now, it is speculation season, of course. But I think if there's little bits of information flying around in sources right now, hopefully we can get our business done in January. I think there are a lot of calls for us to have a defensive midfielder, and for him to fill that role, it would just be a question of how quick he could fill that role. And I hope it does get done in January. We have signed some great players in our January.
Diaz and Gakpo being two of them, yeah.
Of course, and obviously Virgil way back in the day. But I think if we can get that announced, I think it'll be very exciting. And I think we are going through a rebuild right now, and he would be, I think, the perfect person to put in that midfield right now.
Yeah. Interesting you say midfield, considering Inacio as a centre-back, but I suppose all for it. I wouldn't be opposed to it. Anybody that can play that sixth role, I'll play that sixth role.
That's what I mean. I'm just thinking that the way that the only reason why I said put him in defensive midfield is only because I fully believe in the partnership of Van Dijk and Konate, and I feel like if there was somewhere that he would fit into that team right now, it would be that role. Even though he is naturally a centre back, with Trent even pushing into midfield now, him being a right back. Because I feel like it's very easy for those centre backs to sort of even move into a midfield position. Say with John Stones for City, is like basically one of the first names on the team sheet in that midfield now. So I feel like that is where he would go if he was to sign in January. Same with when Gakpo signed, he didn't really play in his natural position. Sort of Jurgen even pushed him into midfield or through the middle. So I feel like when we sign players, even if they have a certain label, that I think they're just going to play where we need them to play.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't disagree with you. He does have the skill set to be able to play in that position. He's defensively very sound. His passing is ridiculous for a centre back. So realistically, I don't see how, in my own opinion, I don't see how he couldn't play there. Willem, me and you have had talks about this guy for months on end at this point. Would you be in much of an agreement with Owen that you would like to maybe, similarly to how Gakpo came in and played out of his natural position, that was the left wing at the time with PSV, and he played more through a central role? How do you think a player like Inacio, with his skill set and how he plays, how do you think he'd fare as a CDM, even in a singularly there or as a double pivot?
I mean, I think he would probably be able to do a job there, even though I don't think he's really played in that position throughout his career. I think for me, actually, with the transfer, what I would probably define more is where we're going with our system. I think if we're getting in Ignacio, I think we'll probably be more likely to see that we'll kind of adapt to City system where it's basically when the lineup comes out, you see 4 at the back, but it's 3 at the back, and then a double pivot with Trent inverting pretty much from the fullback position. Basically confirming then that we'll be sticking to that system from there on out. I still think they might be going for a 6 instead, to maybe also have the flexibility to move out of the system again, and also more revert back to the more traditional system that we played, or at least give that flexibility so that in some of the games where we can't get out of it playing one certain style, that we can at least switch to the other system. I think he would be a great addition for us, more playing as a left centre back or maybe even as a left back than I would see him doing it as a CDM. But I think it's going to be more of a shout on what system we're going to be progressing to play in, depending on who we sign in January, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. It really will give an indication as to what the future of Liverpool will look like and what sort of a style we'll be playing. Will we be sort of feeding up the wings as we normally do, or will we be playing much more up the middle to sort of feed a Darwin Núñez? Paul, with the inclinations that the likes of an Inacio or the Kvaratskhelia will be getting signed, because as Kvaratskhelia's agents apparently met with FSG in Boston. So that is some positive news. And again, we're kind of getting into silly season. So everybody and their mother is going to be posting about Liverpool linked with certain players and every club linked with certain players. Like we've seen it towards the end of the summer transfer window with the Caicedo debacle and drama that happened there, that people are just going to say whatever they want. With both of those players, Inacio and Kvaratskhelia, do you feel like there is any hope of signing one, maybe two, even if it's not now? Would it happen next summer, or do you think that the jury's out on them and we're going in a completely different direction, maybe somebody that we don't even know about yet?
I think there's a very good chance we go for a guy like Inacio. Of course, we missed the chance of signing him last window for a much lower fee, but it is what it is. I also think that where the team is right now, with just 1 point beyond in second place, is we are probably ahead of where the team thought we would be at this time. And now there might be the appetite. You know what? Let's go for it. This is our chance. City is not as strong as they were the last couple of years for a number of reasons. So let's go for it. I'm also one of those who believe that a player like Inacio would be more important signing than, say, Andre. Yeah. Would I like both of them? Absolutely, I would. But I think we're in a greater need for a guy like Inacio, because then he would give us the chance to play with a back three if Klopp decide to go that route. And I guess if you want to use Trent more in the midfield without actually have him as a midfielder, then a guy like Inacio would allow us to do that more. Just a matter of if Verge wants to stay in the center and allow Inacio to be on the left. And then if we're out of possession, and we can switch back to a back four. So he gives us more option. Of course, that we'll probably see Robbo on the bench more, but that's fine because he's pushing 30. As to the guy that I can't pronounce his name, Kvaratskhelia.
That's close enough, yeah.
I'm not really sold on him. I think he's a good player, but the couple of times I've watched him, he doesn't really set the world alight for me. And furthermore, I think he's a right footer, and I just believe that I can't see us having 5 center forwards, assuming Salah leave, and they're all right footers. So where's he gonna play? Is he a number 9, or is he a left winger? So I'm not so sure about him. He's a good player, but he doesn't really set the world alight for me. So I would be happy with Inacio and Andre, and then we go from there. Andre looks like we're not going to get him right now, but even if we just get Inacio and that's all for the January window, assuming guys like Stefan is back off injury and we get a month or two of Thiago, I think I would be fine with that as well, because our midfield is pretty good.
Yeah, it's really. I'd wonder, and I'd like to throw this question to the chat as well, of who, and I'll throw it to everybody here on the panel too, is who helps us more, a 6 or a left-sided centre back, and I think I've asked this question before, but it's interesting as the year goes on and things develop, and we'll see. Like as Jamie has mentioned, it's the Andre and Fulham rumours are fairly heating up. Sketchy sources are reporting that is right, but there's realistically Fulham are looking to offload Paulinho, so it wouldn't be surprising if they were looking for his replacement immediately. And realistically, Andre would be a good fit. I don't see why he goes to Fulham, in my own personal opinion. Not to say that Fulham are a bad club. They're probably one of the most history clubs in the country. It's just right now, I don't necessarily see why. I can't see Fulham competing for anything in the next couple of years, given the state of the league at the moment. But look, there could be other things at play here. Maybe we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But the question I'll pose to the chat, as well as the guys in the panel, is who helps us more in January? A left-sided centre-back or a CDM? Owen, I'll throw the question to yourself first. Who helps us more, a 6 or a left-sided centre-back?
I think you might think, where I'm going with it from my answer before. I feel like a CDM would help us the most. Like I like Endo. I like him being in the team. Maybe there's just something that he's normally better in the European games than he is in the Prem games. Sometimes he does look a little bit lost when he's in the Prem games. He loves a tackle, which is not a bad thing. But at the end of the day, those things can cost us if they do go wrong. I think we were very lucky the other day for him to stay on the pitch. But yeah, I think a CDM would help us at the moment, just so we sort of have a solid midfield, and hopefully that's going to be the thing that we focus on in the January transfer, and even the one in the summer as well. So yeah, I think at the moment a CDM would help us the most, and maybe it'll be a good competition for Endo and even the rest of the midfielders, just in case McAllister wants to step his game up as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's as Jamie has mentioned, it can't really block Kwanzaa's development. I think Kwanzaa will be going in where Virgil van Dijk is. It wouldn't shock me. I know we harp on about having a left-footed, left-sided centre back, but realistically, when you're good enough, the likes of Van Dijk, you don't need to be left or right-footed. Willem, I'll pose the question to yourself as well before we get on to Paul. Are you in agreement with Owen? A CDM helps us more than a left-sided centre-back, and do you think that should be priority for January and next summer?
Yeah, I fully agree with Owen. I think for us this season, the main issue, especially when you look back at the games and look at us defensively, it's not as much our back line being the problem as much as that we're being caught out in transition in the centre of midfield, where our 6, which again, McAllister's a good player, but I just don't think he's an out-and-out 6 to really cover those areas. And I just feel like this season for us, that's the issue that we need to address. I feel like left centre back is something that we can leave till the summer, and I think if we're going to use it for January and use it for this season to give it as a boost, I think the CDM is what we need.
Yeah, I'd be in agreement with you. I'd be in agreement with yourself and Owen, Willem. To be honest with you, I think plugging that hole in the 6 role is probably going to help the back line more than putting in a left-sided centre back to play in the 3-2 whatever system it is that they're playing, 3-2-3-3, if that's the system that they're playing. I don't know if my maths is right there, but it's interesting. Paul, are you in very much the same agreement? We need a 6 more than we need a left-sided centre back, or do you think we need a left-sided centre back more than we need a 6?
I have a slightly different take on it. If I have to choose between Inacio and Andre in January, I'm going for the left centre back. First, I'm not 100% convinced that if Andre comes in January, walks straight into our best 11 to start. I think Inacio will start because we can use him as a centre back, we can use him as a left back, and especially with Robbo's injury, and nobody is sure when he'll be back or how effective he'll be back. He will be when he's back. Plus, I'm not really a big believer in Tsimikas. He's a good player, but not a long-term player for me. As it relates to the defensive midfield, I think the problem is overblown. yes, I know we miss Fabinho, but we are not doing as badly, in my opinion, as a lot of people tend to think. Again, it comes back to our record. We have a better defensive record than Man City, and everybody agree that probably Rodri is the best six in the world. So, but they have conceded, I think, 2 or 3 more goals than us. And then when you look at what we have in midfield, if we're going to assume that Szoboszlai and McAllister nailed on starters, with Curtis Jones, we have enough players there. Gavin Birch, Elliott. I think, yes, Andre would be nice, but we have a greater need, in my opinion, for a player like Inacio. Again, most people might not agree with me, but I just think that we are so short of left footers in our team that is a big issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I'd say I can't really go against what I've been absolutely screaming about the past couple of months. I love Inacio, but yeah, the caveat that you gave really is the crux of the argument. If you had a choice between Andre and Inacio, I wonder, would Willem and Owen change your answers? Yes or no? If it was Andre or Inacio, would either of you guys change your answers?
If it's between those two, then yes. But I mean, I meant it more as in like, what issue do we need fixing right now in January? And then I would say a 6, because Andre wouldn't be my first choice as a 6 because he's a double pivot 8 at the end of the day. So that's also kind of the reason why.
But would Andre come in and start right away? I don't think so.
No, he wouldn't. I would have more seen him as a replacement for Thiago in the long term, and then let Thiago go at the end of the summer. But I think now, after the final of the Copa Libertadores, I think the value for Liverpool to go after him has just probably gone too high.
Right. And if we get a guy like Inacio or Hincapié or one of those guys, I see them playing extensive minutes for the rest of the season, because we need that cover on that left side. Because other than Tsimikas, assuming Robbo is out for extended period, and we have nobody else over there. So that limits what we can do quite a bit, because putting Gomez over there doesn't work for me, because we have no outlet down the left side with Gomez over there. So that is a greater need, and that is why I think that we need to go and address that position first. That's just my opinion.
Owen, are you in much of a similar vein of thought of Willem and Paul, that if it was between Inacio and Andre, that you go with Inacio, or would you still stick with Andre and think that the CDM is the place that we need to go with and target?
No, to be fair, I think I would choose Inacio over Andre, because I feel like that would be beneficial for our team. But I'm the same with Willem. I just feel like that is maybe our weakest spot. So I was just thinking someone else could fill that role. But I would be happy for both of them. I know that's very diplomatic, but if we get both, then I think that's a very successful window for us.
Yeah, I think we win the league, to be honest with you, if we get both. It allows us to play that double pivot where Andre is his strength. Even if we got somebody else in there, even if it'd allow us to play the double pivot and play a back 3 and then function back into a back 4 when we're out of possession. I think it'd be absolutely perfect that way. It's the perfect storm. Haley mentions here that he thinks Man United might go in for Inacio. Man United can't even afford to fix their stadium at the moment, Haley, so I don't think to be going for anybody, considering Big Jim's investment isn't going to come till 2024. So reportedly that is, I don't think Man United are going to be signing anybody in this January transfer window, which will only dig them into a deeper hole and send Erik ten Hag to the unemployment line, which I will be very happy with, because I predicted him to be the first one fired outside of the Wolves manager, because anybody that picked him to be fired first was cheating. That doesn't count. And Jamie is here that Liverpool would do a lot of work behind the scenes on most things, and that is very true. We're just speaking on speculation. Realistically, here, it's for all we know, Liverpool could turn around and drop 100 million and get Chouameni, and we'd all be absolutely shocked. But we also know our owners, as Willem has mentioned to me a couple of times previously, that that probably isn't going to happen. We don't buy stars, we make them, is probably the best quote that I've come across in a while. But Before we move on to one of the next topics, I do want to say, please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really, really, really does help out the channel, and we're nearly at our 10,000 subscribers. We've just gone over 9,800, so we're getting closer and closer, and we want to try and hit that before the January transfer window, so please do help us do that. If you've already done that, we really do appreciate it. Make sure that you have the bell notification on for all future streams so that you don't miss out on any future streams or videos. In case you missed it, my segment should be out later on today. We will have our stream tomorrow night for at 7:30 again. And for those of you who missed last Wednesday's stream, or rather we missed last Wednesday's stream, there was a special guest supposed to be appearing on last Wednesday's stream. Don't worry, he is back tomorrow. He will be there tomorrow. So whoever has Jen's phone number, she's usually in the chat, and I'm shocked she isn't here at the moment because she'd be going nuts. Whoever has Jen's phone number, ring her and tell her to carve out some time tomorrow evening to join for the return, the long-awaited return of Kev. Owen, I don't know if you've ever met Kev. Paul, I don't think you have either at this moment. Willem, I know you've heard whisperings of the man, the myth, the legend.
I think my first stream was with Kev, I think.
Absolute gentleman. I love him.
Yeah.
He's just one of the nicest scousers you could ever meet, Owen and Paul. So you'll very much get along with him. So it'll be good to have him back. But Heller mentions that don't underestimate Man United. I've done nothing but underestimate them ever since Ed Woodward was in charge of them. Ability to get more credit with financial partners. Yeah, but they can't. They'll just go more into debt, and realistically, they'll end up getting absolutely slapped by PFP, Profit and Sustainability, and they'll end up getting slapped by FFP as well. They are one of the strongest names out there at the moment, but realistically, the funds that they have and the funds that were meant to come through from Jim Radcliffe's investment were meant to go towards signings and everything. They technically can't sign anybody without selling people, similarly to Chelsea. That Chelsea can't sign anybody in January without selling off most of their youth squad, and that's why they were able to sign so many people in the summer with the likes of Romeo Lavia, who I even forgot played football for about a couple of weeks there, and Moises Caicedo. So realistically, I don't think United are going to have anyway as strong of a January window. And if they do, like if they were able to sign people, they would have signed Amrabat, but they didn't. They took him on loan for 10 million, and with the ability to sign him next season or next summer for 20 million. Otherwise, they pay a 10 million loan fee. So I don't think United are going to have any way, shape, or form of a strong January window. I don't think Chelsea are going to have one either. And you mentioned that Jadon Sancho is gone. He'll be gone at a bargain basement discount. There's no way they're getting any way, shape, or form a decent funding for him, because he doesn't want to be there and he wants to leave. So their arms will be twisted on that. I can see him going for maybe 50 million, maybe less. I can't see him going for even that. I think that'd even be a stretch. And considering the wages that he's on, he might just turn around and say, nah, I'm sitting here, similarly to Harry Maguire, and just play out the rest of his contract. This is one that we'll get to. We can clip this one for later. I wonder, will anybody be in agreement with Wolfman here? I'll throw. Willem, you're shaking your head, so I'll go with you first on this one. Jadon Sancho.
Get a restraining order against him. I don't want him anywhere near the stadium or near our club. Hell no.
Owen, are you in a much similar vein of thought?
Yeah, no, I think I'd rather take someone like Phillips over Jadon Sancho, who's not had any minutes at all. It's United has no pull anyway, especially in recent years, and their dressing room is toxic, and it looks like he's one of the main culprits of making that dressing room toxic, and that's not how our squad is at all. And having any sort of negativity within our squad is going to be bad for us. Even if he was a talented player back in the day, he hasn't delivered for United. And if Erik ten Hag is not putting you in his team over some of the people he's selecting for his team now, then there's a problem.
Paul, I'd assume you're in a similar vein of thought, considering your opinions on Mbappe, that you don't like divas and troublemakers and spoiled brats in the team.
I have no use for players like Sancho. First of all, where would he play? Actually, I can't even think of one or two Manchester United players right now that I would take at Liverpool. Bruno Fernandes is talented, but would I take him? Probably not. Jadon Sancho, no. I wanted Amrabat. No, I'm happy we didn't get him because what we have seen of him is shite. And excuse my language. I'm also wondered if Man U might be happy they took him on loan and they can just say, you know what? We're just gonna keep you and pay the loan fee and send you back because it's not really very good. So no, Sancho, no. I think he's gonna go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I think so as well. Wolfman, I agree with you at a low price, but if he was anyway sort of able to perform, yeah, I'd maybe take him. But the problem is just the attitude side of it. We really have, since Klopp came in, a no dickheads policy, and it's really worked considering how tightly knit the squad is and how everybody's kind of like family and best friends. And it is a problem with United as a whole. It's just an attitude that's in the club. It's ever since Sir Alex left, it's just been absolutely chronic and toxic, and it's been a horrible place for anybody to go to. And I don't know if it's their scouting department or their transfer department or whoever it is, but Amrabat is injured. That's like, he has a chronic injury. Same with Rasmus Højlund, and they were speaking numbers on him, and they signed him even though he has stress fractures in his spine. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
They paid 70 million for a 30-year-old Casemiro and paying him 200 grand a week. So
350 grand a week, and he has 3 more years on his contract, funnily enough, which is absolutely hilarious.
Well, I mean, it's the same problem like they've been having for the past 7-8 years now, where it's actually the lack of transfer department, and it's actually the lack of people there making the decision. It's all based on a commercial value. It's who's the big name, who will sell T-shirts, who will get it done. It's all done for the money there. And unless Ratcliffe comes in now and sorts it out, I don't see them going anywhere for any time as well. I tell my Man United mates all the time, like, look, as long as the Glazers have got control over that and nothing's getting done, they're not coming back anytime soon.
But like, you can blame the Glazers as much as you want, but realistically, especially this instance, because nobody wants to seem to lay blame at the feet of Ten Hag. And I know we're a Liverpool channel, but it is like, news is slow this week, so we're going to talk about everything, because I'm going to get into some stuff about Tottenham that has been brought out as well, and also the voting that took place and all the clubs banning the teams that have groups transferring players between them. We'll get onto that in a little moment as well, but. Realistically, with United at the moment, I only hold the Glazers argument for so long. It's all fine and well, but the Glazers aren't picking the team. The Glazers haven't signed off on the likes of Anthony for 80 million and then paying him a couple of $100 grand a week. The Glazers didn't sign off on the likes of Mason Mount being signed for £60 million, which, fair dues to Chelsea, that was daylight robbery. And then signed him for 250 to 300 grand a week. And there's multitude of other things. Like, it's just the Glazers argument only holds so much water. Like, fair enough that the way that they bought the club was quite hilarious accounting and should have been completely illegal, that they used the value of the club to get credit on the loan to buy the club, which I find absolutely hilarious of how they were able to do that. But when you have a manager that's been there for 18 months and has spent £500 million, and you still have no footballing identity, and you still are having shocking performances, that Man City game is a perfect example. The Glazers didn't leave Haaland open at the back post to score that goal, so I don't exactly know what anybody's supposed to do about that. It's a funny one, realistically.
The latest I'm seeing is that they are offering to triple Griezmann's salary to come to Man U.
With what money?
But isn't he like 32, 33?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Again, as Willem mentioned, it's selling jerseys. Oh, we have her here. Jen, your favorite person will be on tomorrow night, so please make sure that you have your evening free for the return of the man, the myth, and the legend that is Kev. We know you missed him last week, but don't worry, he'll be here tomorrow. I have that on good authority that the stream will be going on tomorrow night, so make sure that you're tuned in for that. Yeah, he'll be here. Don't worry.
Mhm.
The return of Kev TV will be back, so we can't wait for that. He's going to kill me if he sees me that I said that. He'll fucking kill me. Owen and Paul, Kev doesn't like all the bravado that we give him, but he's loved by everybody, the chat and the group as well. But he absolutely hates any attention that he gets, so we give him more attention to annoy him. It's great, but. It's interesting that we go on about clubs and their owners and what they go on about, because today the vote came out about Premier League's blocking signings on loan players from partner teams. So the likes of City taking people from Strasbourg, or signing somebody to Strasbourg to then go to City, or sending somebody to Strasbourg and then loaning them back, like that kind of shit. Or the stuff that's happened with Neves over in Saudi Arabia, that the same team that owns same guys that own Newcastle own the same team, so that the team in Saudi Arabia could buy him and then loan him to Newcastle. So like that kind of shit to circumvent FFP and profit and sustainability. But it has been reported, according to sources, now this isn't guaranteed, that the 7 clubs that blocked it, so there needed to be a 14-6 majority, that something gets pushed through, and this was 13-7. And I looked into that as well, Haley, and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. Like, they're top of the league at the moment. It'd make no sense to them. And especially considering that this is in the news at the moment, it would be so blatantly obvious what they're trying to do that they couldn't even deny it. So that's why I don't think it's going ahead, purely because it would quite literally make them look guilty. But the 7 clubs that voted against it were, in no particular order, Newcastle, Sheffield United, Man City, Chelsea, Everton, Wolves and Forest. Not so surprising with a couple of them. Sheffield United got some ire, but considering they're Saudi owned, and they're not really long for the Premier League, making a decision like this at last year's, which I think is hilarious. But I'll throw it out to everybody in the chat, and I'll throw it to the guys in the panel as well. Like, Paul, you said before the stream started that you didn't really have opinions on this one way or the other, with this sort of a thing being banned or not being banned in this instance. But the fact that it allows teams that own multiple clubs to circumvent the financial fair play rules and the profit and sustainability rules, it could become a big problem. But you said that you don't really think it's much of a problem and you don't really necessarily care about it. So give me a couple of your opinions and thoughts on that. I'd love to know more about it.
Well, as a Liverpool supporter for so many years, I'm accustomed to fighting teams that play at a different rules than us. So I guess, and then I just look at Saudi Arabia and see how much talent is in Saudi really that can come to the Premier League. I don't think there's that much. Yes, Ruben Neves is one, and there might be a couple more, but I don't think it will. I mean, it's not a big deal for me. I don't think if we lose the league, we can say that's the reason. And I just don't. I think it's much ado about nothing, really.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much the problem with Ruben Neves. I think it's a problem more so for the way the league is run in Saudi, is that it's a team that overlooks the whole league. And they say, we want player X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And they go to the teams that are then in the league and be like, okay, you can sign him, you can sign him, you can sign him. That to me is the definition of a glorified exhibition league. That it's the league divvying the players out, and it's not the actual teams competing for it. And that then leads me to sort of think that the likes of what's the name of the kid that moved from Spain over to
Gabri Vega.
Oh.
Vega. Somebody like him, like he could, like, who's to say that he couldn't have been told, look, we'll get you over here on massive wages and then we'll fire you over to the Premier League or to some other league that you want to go to once we have you for a year and we get a couple of sales out of your jersey and whatnot, and we get a bit of money in that way. Who's to say that couldn't happen? So the likes of a Newcastle that might own Al Hilal, I think is the team that they own as well, to sign some youngster, play him in the Saudi League, and then fire him over to Newcastle on loan and him be an absolute worldie. Similarly to how Ansu Fati is with Brighton at the moment, but that's between Barcelona and Brighton, and he's going back and he doesn't seem to want to stay at Brighton, which I think is silly for him, to be perfectly honest. I think he'll do absolutely great at Brighton. But Owen, I'll throw the question to yourself as well, is do you see this becoming a major problem in the Premier League with this circumventation of the financial fair play rules, or are you much in agreement with Paul that it's much ado about nothing?
No, I just think football is getting so dystopian at the moment, and I just feel like this is just a big cry out for us to have an independent football regulator. I think it should have happened years ago, and I just think this is just another loophole that rich teams can manipulate and exploit when they try and improve their squads and try and go about it without breaking any rules. And now I think teams have got to be really careful after what has happened to Everton. I don't think Everton are going to be backing down anytime soon. I don't know how how that's going to work out for them. I don't think anything's going to happen or anything's going to change despite what they've built up. But something like this is just another way that teams can exploit the financial fair play, and I think it does have to stop. There has to be someone that can overrule it. Should it be all the Premier League? And it is 14-6, is that a good enough for a majority for like a major decision? I'm not saying the big six should have a bigger sway, but maybe even a 12-8 majority, but then maybe that's too small.
Too close to 50-50, I think, in my own opinion.
But
so Stephen, why do you think a team like Liverpool didn't vote to block such a move?
Because as we've mentioned, we seem to be the only people that actually abide by the rules and the actual integrity of the game. In my own opinion, why we haven't blocked it, and we would be for it, is because, well, realistically, our main competitors are Man United, Man City, Chelsea on a good day if they have their shit together, and that way
Arsenal,
but Arsenal voted against it as well. But it's an interesting thing because the likes of Crystal Palace, who's Saudi owned and has a conglomerate of teams like Lyon, and the likes of Brighton as well, that owns a number of teams, also voted to ban it. So it really comes down to, and the fact that Everton voted to ban it is all too telling of the shady shit that's going on at that club, realistically. And as Owen, as you mentioned, with Everton fighting the decision, I don't think there's any way that they come out of this better off, considering the same panel that gave them the 10-point deduction is now oversight over Leicester, Burnley and Leeds suing them for 300 million. Everton are going into administration and they're going to lose another 9 points easily. So they're going down this season, and that suing of them.
We're going to miss them. I want them to stay.
I wanted them to stay too. It's 6 points every season, or potential 6 points every season. It's great, but it's realistically, Willem, are you much of an agreement that it just ruins the integrity of the sport, and as Owen mentioned, it becomes a bit dystopian?
Yeah, I agree. I think if anything, the last couple of weeks have just kept on showing us that as much as I as well wasn't too much of a fan of the suggestion from the government to have a regulator on it, more because I'm always like, look, I'd rather keep the government away from stuff that annoy me.
Yeah.
But like, as in, it's gotten to a point now where it's just unfathomable. Like, and it's kind of like, it's to make kind of an anecdote about it. Like, I don't know if any of you guys watch Formula One, right? Yep. But like in Formula One with the FIA, you have teams obviously often as well getting to make a decision on a certain penalty or certain consequences that happen. It even happened last weekend with a driver in a penalty, but I'm not going to go into it.
I know exactly what you're on about. Carlos Sainz's car basically exploded.
No, exactly. And then but the problem is, and like Verstappen said it after that race, he goes, the team shouldn't have an influence on it, because at the end of the day, the teams are going to do what's in their benefit. And even if you have this voting system, there's always going to be some form of politics inside each different club, which is going to have their motives to keep it in the way that benefits them. Whereas if you have a more regulated set of rules along with consequences for it, it would just be, and take the influence of the teams out of it, it would actually just probably benefit it a lot more in the long run. But that's just more I don't think this decision necessarily will have a massive impact right now, but it could in the long run. Again, if more owners decide to buy up more clubs, then obviously this is another way for them to just circle around it. So it will depend on what the future brings with it.
I think it opens the door for clubs to do that. Especially considering what has happened with Brexit and everything, and how you're not able to sign the youngsters from Europe like you used to. So it circumvents that too. I don't think a lot of people have noted that. The reason why Liverpool have gone and signed the likes of Trey Neone and others to the youth squads that are 16-year-olds is because you can't, with Brexit having come in, the work permits that are there for guys under the age of 18 can't come from the European Union. They're not allowed. So going and purchasing teams and conglomerates in the likes of South America and the likes of Saudi Arabia, and then pulling these European guys over there to train them up and then fire them over to the Premier League when ready is another thing that could happen too. It's just, I think it's a can of worms that's going to be opened and be absolutely astronomical going forward. I think it changes. It depends though as well, because if Man City end up getting absolutely slapped like we hope they do, it could change again. It's a very interesting.
You won't hear me complain again if that happens. Don't worry. Then once justice is served at that point, I don't care anymore.
Yeah. I do think we do. The Premier League needs an independent adjudicator, similarly to how Formula One has the FAI, the FIA, should I say? Excuse me, and the likes of other independent bodies that are there. Like, you need an independent body that has no outside influence from Premier League teams to adjudicate rules such as this, and they need to come to a decision. And not saying that the teams shouldn't be heard. The teams should be able to make a case, and then the independent body makes a decision on it themselves with an informed decision from opinions and cases given forward by each club. I have no problem with a club having an opinion, but you can't self-govern. That's just asking for corruption, realistically. But it's just hilarious. Like Tottenham, for example. Tottenham are now getting slapped with using an unlicensed agent for Jermaine Defoe way back.
That was like 14, 15 years ago?
About 15 years ago, 2008.
Yeah.
Like, and they could face bans and points deductions for that. Like, but I think it's funny that these guys are getting put forward first, like Everton and Tottenham, because I think somebody said it on Twitter. It's like giving somebody a parking ticket while there's two serial killers out there running about the place, and you're not focusing on that. And that's probably the most apt description of it. But it's Wolfman says it perfectly here. It's the foxes guarding the hen coop. It's that's exactly what it is, with the Premier League self-policing itself, and the teams having such an influence on it. But it's funny because I think City will have nothing done to it purely because of how long it's taken. But I also think that this will be the third time in the space of 7 years. I lie, 7? Third time in the space. If it happens in the calendar year of 2023, it will be the third time in 8 years that Manchester City has been found guilty of doping financially. The first time was 2015, where they got slapped with a €60 million fine. Second time was 2020, when they got given 2-year ban from the Champions League. But they got that down through the Court of Arbitration of Sport in Europe to just a £10 million fine. Brown envelopes under the table that paid UEFA off, whatever it may be. It is City, I think, will get the book thrown at them. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me.
Well, I think, Stephen, if Man City should go on and win the league again this year, so that will be the 4th consecutive year. I think there'll be a great appetite among football for something to be done, against City.
Yeah.
So that could see them. I don't know. I don't think it will be a financial penalty. We are hoping it's a relegation, but I would be very surprised if that doesn't happen. Just that I don't think it's going to be this year. It might be 2025, at the pace at which it's going. So it won't be anytime soon. But I can't imagine a world in which City get away with nothing. It has to happen. It's just a matter of how severe the punishment will be and when. It's going to be 2 years, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. Owen, Willem, are you in much of an agreement with that? That it may not, it's not in the near future, but it's a matter of when, not if, at this stage. What do you think, Owen?
Yeah, I think there's definitely not been anything said from the City camps or the Chelsea camps. It's kind of it's very unprecedented times, but I just feel like they're terrified now that something will happen to them. And I just hope it's a matter of time that something happens. Just how interesting would it be, just a Premier League without Man City? That, you know, even if it was just one, one season where they just weren't in it, you know, that I think it would be one of the greatest, most entertaining leagues that we'd see. But yeah, I'm just hoping, you know, because it's something like over, you know, 500 charges or something like that over the past since 2013 or whatever it's been. So I'm just hoping that there is some sort of punishment more than just a fine, because I feel like I don't know how Everton were the first to bite the bullet.
Yeah, self-reported. You know? That's why.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah. So yeah,
singular charge as well.
Yeah,
right,
singular charge. The case with Man City has been 4 years in the making. This would be the 5th year. So that's, and the amount of the charges. I think myself and yourself, Will, and we're chatting about it in the group chat. Like, we don't, like, realistically at the moment, we don't even know what could be considered an appropriate punishment, considering there's 5 different sets of charges. Like, and by the way, the reason that City only got away with fines in 2015 and 2020 is because their lawyers pushed it out past the expiry date, meaning that they could only fine them. That's why that happened. But thankfully, the Premier League doesn't have an expiry date, so they're fucked, in my own opinion. I just hope it's sooner rather than later. But Willem, is there in your mind even a punishment? Because it'll be unprecedented, because nothing like this has ever happened before. So if the punishment is to fit the crime, it has to be a punishment that has never happened before. So multiple relegations, administration of the club, selling of assets, loss of transfer windows, ban from European competitions, payback funds that would have gone to other teams from previous. Like, there's so much that could be done about it. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And it should. Because at the end of the day, their success at the end of the day has taken away from all of us. So it's taken away, obviously, the 2 league titles we've lost out. But let's be honest as well, United as well, pretty much those 2 second places they had as well. That's also technically their title gone. Arsenal last year would have probably won the league if it weren't for all of this. And the list goes on, obviously. So it's affected everyone. And at the end of the day, it's been done so thoroughly as well that they've done it ever since the start of the takeover up until the season of the Centurions, from what we've been finding out. So it's not just, oh no, we did it at the start and then from there on out the club could have grown out. No, they've actively done it for a decade. So
but even the fact that they've done it for a decade, it didn't matter when they stopped. It didn't matter if they did it for 1 year, or if they didn't matter if they did it for 10 years or 100 years. Where they are now is a product of where they were then, and the success that they had then ultimately fuels everything going forward. So cheating to get the success then ultimately fueled the funds that would allow them to continue to progress and continue to gain success. So realistically, the cheating didn't stop in 2018. The cheating continued because their success and the players that they were able to sign and the funding that they were able to manipulate allowed them to sign those players under the pretense that they were with the rules, and then go on to have success and further success, and then keep doing the same thing and rinse and repeat. A self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially.
There's a very good reason why, though, because in 2018, it was when it got announced by the Premier League that City were getting investigated. And in that moment, all of a sudden, City knew how to balance the book and actually use net spend. It never happened before that. If you literally look at it, that's like what's been happening the whole past 5 years. Ever since it basically got announced that the Premier League was after them and they knew it didn't have an expiry date, that's where all of a sudden they started balancing the books a lot more out. All of a sudden you hear Pep saying, no, we as a club can't spend this, can't go through this, and just making up a load of stuff just to like show like, no, look at our net spend, look at how we've been doing this entire time. It's like, no, mate, come on, like we all know what you've been doing the entire time. It's so blaringly, like just blatantly obvious. Like it just infuriates me the entire time because it's just as well. It's more for me. I just want them punished. I don't even want the title stripped. I don't care about that. Well, like what's been in the past has been in the past. You can't revert it at this point. And I'm not going to celebrate something from 2 or 4. Or
I want them to keep the Premier Leagues and every trophy that they've won. and make sure that it's plastered all over every trophy that they've ever won, that they cheated to get this, that they were a tin pot club from the beginning that was getting relegated and slapped by Middlesbrough in the early 2000s, and they have never changed. The only thing that happened was his daddy came in with a big wallet and bought them a fancy car. That's essentially the nuts and bolts of it. And as Sahil puts it here, nothing will happen till Pep leaves. I think Pep goes in the summer. I think he goes to international management. I think Haaland goes in the summer because he doesn't have a clause for Real Madrid, but he does, essentially. Like, his agent has been sat over in Real Madrid, sipping on cocktails over there, and realistically...
Both their contracts are till 2025, by the way, Guardiola and Haaland. So
the funny that Paul mentions it might happen in 2025 and both their contracts finish in 2025. Interesting, that.
Right. I mean, I'm a little different opinion. I think they should be stripped of those titles. Of course, there's no point in giving them to the second place team each year, but they were not champions because they were cheating. The question is, for those years, the teams that get relegated those years, will they be able to sue? Because if I get relegated in 2017, 18, 19, whatever, I can make a case and say, Manchester City cheated, and if they hadn't cheated, I probably would have stayed up. So I think the punishment should be huge.
I think it's the issue would be more so not so much the relegated teams, because an argument could be made that there was so many teams ahead of them they may not have. It's the teams on the fringes of the European competition that would have the biggest case. Because if you were in the top four and you finished fifth, but Man City were financially doping, if let's say they were charged correctly and they dropped 10 points and that would have put you into the Champions League spots, that's a massive amount of money that people don't realize, because there's TV rights, then there's sponsorship, then there's jersey sales, then there's exposure via the media, then there's everything like that as well. Like, it's an exponential problem, because then they could have signed people with that money that they brought in and then continued their success. But because it was stipend by the likes of City cheating, it never happened. I think it's going to be absolutely diabolical.
So what's going to happen to the players, though? I don't see Guardiola and those guys playing in the championship. Rodri playing in the third division. What's going to happen to those players?
Well, they'll leave. They'll end up leaving because their salaries will get drastically reduced because they go down. It's similarly to how you would be.
Is there a clause that would suggest that?
I'm nearly sure. To be honest with you, they may not have even put it into the clause because they never thought this would happen. But similarly to how if you were not in the European competitions and then got into the European competitions, like with Maguire with Man United, why he didn't move during the summers, because they got Champions League and his wages went up by $100,000 a week because he got Champions League. So it could be something similar to that, but it is an interesting one to look at. Owen, I know we've talked a lot and you haven't really gotten a word in the past little while, but what punishment do you think City should get, and what do you think they will get? We'll finish on this one for the evening, but it's as Sahil puts it here, Paul. They have a minimum salary cap, so they'd have to sell everybody. Haaland alone would be their salary, so they'd have to sell absolutely everybody. But Owen, back to yourself. Do you think City get charged, and is it in the near future? And what do you think they get charged with? Multiple relegations, points, fines, or the whole lot?
I'm just hoping that now that something drastic has happened and Everton has lost points, I do think that has opened it up for people to look into City, and I do hope it is this season. I don't know. Maybe they just keep it as the minus 10, but I still think City would still easily get top four, maybe even still win the league if they did get minus 10. And it seems drastic to Everton because they're now in the relegation zone. But I think if City got minus 10 points, would that drastically change anything when it comes to the end of the season? If it's minus 10 for City,
if it's minus 10, that could drop them out of top four and into the 5, 6, 7 position. That would knock them out of Champions League contention that way. And then that would then further snowball the funding and everything. But I think the real crux of it is what happened with Leicester, Burnley and Leeds, that they're suing Everton. If that happens, multiply the money that is being sued by them 3 clubs by 10 years and then multiply it by 4 to 5 different teams and teams that were in the league those years, it'd put them into administration if they can't pay it, meaning they'd have to sell off assets, sell other clubs, sell this, sell that, or maybe even sell the club itself, sell players. It could lead to, hopefully, and I hope so because they've ruined football, in my own opinion, the end of Manchester City. And I would not shed a tear on that day, in my own opinion.
I just hope someone has the balls to do it. I'm really.
In my opinion, if it's for like all the charges, like if it's all of the 115 charges that have got done, even if it's 70, for me, to be fair, like anything from 70 upwards, if it's proven to be true, for me, they should be put down to National League. Like, and that should be enough by itself, because if you're that much of a big club, prove it, then build your way back up from National League all the way back to the Prem. Done. Yeah. And I would just leave it at that. I'd even put a clause in saying, look, we're not even going to go through the whole lawsuits and stuff and everything. This is punishment enough. That would be my goal for it.
If they came to a deal on it, or an agreement, or some sort of not a sellout clause. What's the word I'm looking for? What is it?
A settlement.
Settlement. There we go. Came to a settlement where they're like, we'll just get relegated a couple of times and we'll sell all the players. Because realistically, if you could imagine fucking Haaland in the National League, it'd be hilarious. But see, that's why I think Haaland knows the writing is on the wall, and his agent is obviously clued in as well, which is probably why there is or isn't a clause in his contract to let him go to Real Madrid, which is why I think they'll be going that route, because Real Madrid do need a striker. They have their wingers, but they need a striker. So that could be, and I'd laugh so hard if it was like a £50 million clause.
Mbappe is going to Madrid, man.
Oh, he's not. Mbappe's not going to Madrid. Mbappe's either coming to Liverpool, which would be much to your ire, Paul, or he's staying at PSG, and they'll just sign a new contract. It's one of them two options, because I don't think he goes anywhere near Madrid, purely because I think Madrid smell blood in the water with Haaland, and they'll go for him. And they also need to get some full back help as well. So they've obviously been sniffing around Trent, and they've been sniffing around Reece James as well. So if they wanted a walk-in hospital bill, they can go for Reece James. But
do you really believe those Trent rumors, or it's just nothing? I think any team that is any team is always very interested in Trent Alexander-Arnold. There is no reason to not be interested in him. Now, would he go and would we sell him, are a completely different argument. If we were offered £150 million for him, I'd have to say I'd be tempted. I know people would disagree with me, but £150 million for a right back is not money to be laughed at. I don't know how they'd pay that, first of all, and also it's any team that has their wits about them would be interested in all players across all leagues, and realistically would have their finger on the pulse of a lot of situations. Like Trent's contract is up in 2025. There's been no talks at the moment to renew that. They may start next summer and he'll get another 4 or 5 year deal slapped on. He'll go up to 250 grand a week. He's on 170, 180 as he is at the moment. So I can see that happening too. So it's interesting. I don't think he will go. I think they'll go for somebody like Reece James, because Chelsea are desperate to sell people at the moment, because if they miss out in European football, they're in a similar situation to Man City. And I think they could, because they're going to get a points deduction for the shit that Abramovich was at. So it's very interesting times, and it's nice to be one of the only teams, along with Arsenal, to actually abide by the rules and have none of this worry over us. It's absolutely beautiful. But before we go, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody that has joined us this evening. We have some international games tonight. We have Virgil van Dijk, who's currently playing for the Netherlands at the moment for some fucking reason. I don't know why he's playing there, but realistically, it's against fucking Gibraltar. I don't know why the fuck he's playing him, but it is what it is. But we will leave it there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Willem, for everybody to join us. We very much appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we will see you guys tomorrow at 7:30 for the big return of the man that is Kev. Thank you guys so much. Have a lovely evening.